Hello and welcome to the Southeast Chicago Archive and Storytelling Project. This is a website where we highlight historic moments and artifacts taken from the southeast side of Chicago. And for this storyline walkthrough, we have The Closing of the Mills, an interactive documentary told through museum objects saved by Southeast Chicago residents. I will be your narrator. My name is Stephen Walsh. I am a film producer and documentary filmmaker that was born and raised on the southeast side of Chicago, also a member of the advisory board for the Southeast Chicago Historical Society. This is a journey into the industrial history of Southeast Chicago, created from the voices and donated objects of Southeast Chicago residents. These storylines are interactive experiences, and on our website, sechicagohistory.org/stories, you have full access to the storylines where you can see additional information pertaining to each story. You'll have access to archive elements that were incorporated into the story, and you have access to pullouts which provide more in-depth information about the various segments of the story. But for those who just want to sit back, relax, and walk through it in a documentary-style experience, just hit play and enjoy. This is a quote from Southeast Chicago resident Peggy Salazar. When the steel mills left, there wasn't anything that easily replaced them that paid a living wage. You might have gotten malls, but they just didn't pay what the steel mills paid. They just don't. I would say we're sort of a reflection of that, like a mini representation of what happened throughout the country itself. The Calumet region of Southeast Chicago and Northwest Indiana was once one of the largest industrial corridors in the world. For a century, steel mills dominated the landscape. And here we see a bird's eye view of the steel mills in the Calumet region, the Southeast Chicago and Northwest Indiana area. This is a snapshot at the peak employment, which was right around and after World War II. And beginning in the 1980s, the steel mills began to close, and over 100,000 jobs were lost since the height of the industry. And you can see that devastating snapshot going from its peak to nearly all of the employment gone in the area, particularly in the Southeast Chicago area where there are 0 steel mill jobs remaining. Workers could get fired for taking pictures in the mills, but when the mills closed, some brought their video cameras to document the last days.
Tell me something, Joe.
Well, it has nothing to say, Hector. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. What can I tell you at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Say something for posterity.
Well, posterity.
Yeah.
There isn't none right now.
No, just for your posterior, huh?
Well, yeah, that's it.
Right here. 2 operators.
Can you imagine doing this for a living?
And for each of our storylines, we'd like to begin with highlighting an artifact that symbolizes what the story is about. And this is VHS home video footage taken in 1992 from former steel workers on the last days of U.S. Steel Southworks. Today, museum visitors can view these videotapes to reflect on that past. And here's a quote taken from former U.S. Steel Southworks worker Wes Bueno. They had rumors that it was going to close up, but none of us actually believed it.
Okay, we're going to go around the whole place just to have the memories of this old dying elephant here. So what do you got to say about this here, Joe?
Hey, man, it's sad. I tell you the truth, man. But hey, luck run out.
Well, they had like rumors going around that it was going to close up.
That's right.
But none of us actually believed it. I think I was probably out of there a year, maybe 2, before it dawned on me finally, this ain't coming back.
See, you found the red button, huh? Yeah. Okay. Now, tonight, we're going to make live shots. I'm going to go on the cranes, and I'm going to go in the pulpit, talk to the guys and everything like that, just for the memories and stuff. Just prepare yourself. Make sure that the TV is kind of low, because it's going to hurt your ears. There it goes.
The first thing you notice when you first get in there is if you don't quit right away, you're going to become a steel worker, which means that's a whole different breed. That's what you realize right off. They're not like any other people that you know, ever.
And a guy's gonna go and crawl inside that bell, and he's gonna take care of the bottom of that ladle.
Oh, well, hot over there.
Then how? What do you figure that ladle is? About what? 2,000?
3,000.
About 3,000 degrees. Can you imagine somebody crawling down to this thing inside that hot ladle and fixing the bottom, boy? Somebody has to do it, so old Roy is going to crawl down in there and take care of it. There he goes. Well, I'll tell you what, I hope he comes up.
You heard the guy on the crane saying, see that guy, I hope he comes back up. He just hopes to see the guy again.
There he goes. There he is. Don't take long, but it sure don't take long to burn you up either, ain't it, Taylor?
I think an outside person looking at it would think, good God, how could they do that? But if you've been there, it's like, wow, it's like memories.
I just want to let you guys know this is a PG-rated movie, so watch your language. Okay?
All those guys that were in that room, they were all involved in the making of steel, which means that all those jobs are not translatable.
What'd you say, John?
It looked like the final days of Pompeii.
You can't go anywhere downtown and tell them, hey, I used to melt steel, because that guy don't know what the hell you're talking about. He don't care what you're talking about. All he wants to know is how fast can you get out of his office.
Hey, cover that guy in the middle, will you?
I think a lot of guys that stuck around here and hoping it would come back, they got decimated. A lot of those guys had a hard time, if not most. And that's probably why there was all this junk about divorces and suicides and all that, because in their mind, they had nowhere else to go. There was nothing else to do.
I'm taping it for us.
Holy shit. See all the reps? See? See what I gotta work with?
It's a poor kid.
It molds the kind of person that you're going to become. And at the time, I didn't even know it. And I've had a ton of jobs since. And I don't have that kind of memory about any of them.
I'm getting everybody, Walt. Everybody.
Oh, you want to remember us, huh?
Oh, yeah. Everybody gets on the...
On the tape.
Yeah, on the movie. Okay, Walt.
A job like no other. After the steel mills opened in the late 19th century, hundreds of thousands of immigrants and migrants came looking for jobs in the Calumet region. The mills were a cauldron of fire, heat, and molten metal. Workers from different backgrounds came together in this tumultuous mix. The hardships of the steel mills were legendary. Accidents and even deaths were common.
This guy was, like a switchman. His wife was waiting for him at the gate. And because it was New Year's Eve, and he was supposed to get off. And she was pregnant, like 8 months. And he got run over by the train because he had a hood that blocked his view. And he stood in the middle of the tracks, and they could barely find any pieces of him, Yeah. And then they had to tell his wife, and she just collapsed.
A quote from Francisco Ramos, former steel worker from Republic Steel. Quote, "Ever been in a mill? They're deafening. And we used to work on the cranes exchanging cables and motors. It was so dusty there. We didn't have no mask. We didn't have none of that. That came after. But at the beginning, we used to spit that graphite for days." A quote from Osborne Ferguson. The first day I went up there, I had on a shirt. No undershirt, pants, just regular. The heat hit me and it burned me. When I got through, I was wringing wet. When I ate my lunch, I just sat on the steps. I couldn't go downstairs. That's the way they broke you in. The intensity of the job forged a deep camaraderie among workers, but sometimes tensions could simmer and boil over. Historically, mill managers pitted different ethnic and racial groups against each other to keep workers from unionizing and wages low.
Unfortunately, people were deliberately by steel mill barons taught to live in their areas, and that they thought by keeping the other guy down, African American or the women or whoever, Irish, they had signs for the Irish. We hire no Irish here, no Irish need to apply.
You can see in the background image the signs written in multiple languages. Just goes to show the complexity of working in the mills with all of the various cultures, all needing direction, all speaking different languages. Workers in some groups would also try to control access to better paying jobs at the expense of others.
I went to work that night and I'm looking on this particular shelf. I'm saying to myself, Jesus, I was the only black guy on this shelf, you know?
Right.
They did not want to teach you jobs. I mean, if they was doing things and you were working with this guy, he wouldn't show you.
And here is an example of a pullout where you can learn more info about a particular section from the storyline. Here we have a pullout called Race in the Mills, where you're given more context and a more in-depth background of what it was like for various races working in the mills at different times in the history of the industrialization of the area. Women also had a tough time breaking into mill work. By the 1970s, however, they were a growing presence. A quote from Rose Rodriguez, Inland Steel, East Chicago, Indiana. "I was taught to work and work hard. If it was 2 shovels for a man's 1, that's what I did." And next we have a wonderful interview from 2 women who worked in the mills for most of their life, Doreen Godinez and Rose Rodriguez, speaking on their experiences as women in the mills.
It's a very rare bird, a woman of steel. She has to take a lot, and it's not just the heat.
So when I came into the mill, it was an extreme culture shock for me.
I mean, we had no clue what we were getting into. We were there to put food on the table. There were a lot of single moms. They were like me, high school dropouts, got married at a very early age.
They told us when we were in orientation, they tried to scare us out of going in the mill to see if we had enough backbone to stick it out.
And once we got there, you had a choice. Either you were going to make the gravy or not.
I came to electrical, and the men did not want women working there. They didn't want us to succeed. I was not going to let them think that a Hispanic woman did not have morals, that a woman didn't have the mental capacity to achieve her goal. And physically, I was strong like Rosa, and I did my job. I wasn't counting on them to do my work, but they weren't going to dump on me either.
I was taught to work and work hard. If it took 2 shovels for a man's 1, that's what I did.
I love the union job. I love a good fight when it's for a good reason. I wanted to start the Women of Steel. I did this because I belong to a larger organization of women in the county. We went on to asking more women. I got them to go to South Chicago, and like Rose says, school and rallies and pickets and stuff, and run for offices. We did a lot of amazing things together because every woman brings to the table her own experience, her own talents, her own abilities. And watching those women step up and become stronger and get into positions, I loved it. Yeah. It was great seeing them grow.
At the end of the day, because even the guys that I fought for 10 years, They knew we had their back. At the end, we stood together.
And here's a pull-out titled Women in the Mills, where we are given a more in-depth understanding of what that experience was like for women working in the steel mills. Sometimes workers found ways to come together despite the divisions. The unions were the main route.
Now, this picture here, that's the original picture of the 1st committee man of U.S. Steel that formed Local 65 as the union. And my father here. But was the first man, 10 man, that formed the union. So I'm proud of this picture too. And that was one of them.
Steel industry in the 70s, you could earn a nice living and support your family. You had good benefits, vacation, insurance. If you got laid off, you had unemployment benefits, and it was a union job, which I liked it very much.
I can say that there were bad days, but as a whole, it was a good place to work. And even those that we weren't friends when we worked, when we come across each other at our picnic or something like that, we hug, and it was like a family, really. Yeah, I'd always tell my wife, I said, you know what, this is my second family at home. That was my first one there.
I had a lot of friends in there. I kind of missed them. What can I say? There were good times in there. We had Christmas. We would bring food into the shop. We had retirement parties. Beautiful. All that started fading away as years going on. The mills began to close. That's what I remember most.
That's all we're gonna have is memories, ain't it? It's something. It's like cutting your right arm off. This goddamn place closing like that. It just hurts the shit out of me. I don't know how you feel.
A world turned upside down. The experience of the Calumet region wasn't unique. Over the next few decades, virtually every part of the U.S. lost industrial jobs. Between 1980 and 2014, 7 million industrial jobs were lost in the United States. And here you see a visual showcasing what that looks like on a national level. The reason why each mill closed was different, but corporate restructuring, growing global competition, and changing government policies were key. Answering the question as to why the mills closed is very complex, but this pullout offers some insight and a more in-depth look at some of those factors. Additionally, at the end of this storyline, there are a ton of resources and references used to build this storyline, which provide some more detail as to some of those factors. Each mill in Southeast Chicago had a slightly different story. And we're coming back to this bird's eye view map of the various mills in the Calumet region. And if you hover over the names of the mills, you are given an excerpt as to some of the history of that mill and why they either closed down completely or downsized significantly. The mill closings and layoffs caused more than economic hardship. They undermined families and gutted neighborhoods. And here's one of my favorite group of artifacts from all of the collection from the Historical Society. They're notes from unemployed steelworkers, and they're handwritten, and some of them are absolutely devastating to read, but it's a first-person insight as to what it felt like during this time for these individuals. I'm just going to read a few for reference here. The shame of being a very motivated, hardworking individual and not being able to find a job that can support me with a roof over my head and food on the table. Loss of home, loss of wife and family, loss of friends, loss of self-respect and esteem, depression and anger, feelings of hopelessness. I think it helped to kill my wife. I lost my house, wrecked my car. I had to split the rest of my family up, and it is causing a lot of emotional strain on my 10-year-old daughter. between losing her mother and having no permanent home, being in 3 different schools since her mother died. I have never seen or felt anything like this in my life. If I had a chance to do it all over again, believe me, it would be different.
Everybody lost out big. Some are very depressed. It's very sad and personal, because if you feel you can get another job, then you say, what am I going to do to support my family? In the mill where I worked, 3 employees, they took their lives. They couldn't cope with what was going on, and they said that's it. They hanged themselves, which was a very, very bad experience for me, because I knew those people personally.
Even in Indiana, where some mills survived, most jobs disappeared. Another quote from Rose Rodriguez. We look at the soup kitchens from the 30s. That was us in the 80s. And we continue on with their interview and them talking about what life was like during this moment in history in the 80s when the mills were starting to shut down.
We'd be laid off. We'd go to work for about a month, and then they'd lay you off. Then you'd get called back, and it was like a bad marriage. You just kept going back because you knew you had to. There was no other choice, no choice.
When it first hit us, for me, it was very sad because it was like we were walking in a ghost town. When you looked around, almost all the women were gone. Men were gone. The numbers from going from the 26,000 plus down to what we are today, there's less than 3,000 now. It was something that we hadn't even dreamed of.
We look at the soup kitchens from the 30s. That was us in the 80s. Back then, people wouldn't hire you. They would, if they knew that you worked in the steel industry, they told you to your face, we're not going to waste our money or our training on you, and we didn't get hired. My son needed a pair of tennis shoes, and I couldn't afford it. I didn't have the money. And I went to work in a soup kitchen. And in that soup kitchen, they were always getting this extra food, that spoiled in a day or two, and I would take it to the strike line. I met people that committed suicide, young people. I met people that became alcoholics and druggies. And, I would talk to them and I would tell them, bro, I know where you're coming from. Been there.
I was laid off for 13 months. And out of what Rose is saying, the one thing that struck me personally for my family was that we could not afford toilet paper. So I would go to McDonald's and get napkins. And I said to myself, I will never be in this situation again. My family will not be in this situation. And my house always has an abundance of toilet paper, even in the COVID. I had cases of toilet paper.
It made me recognize my journey. If there's a purpose, I got hungry. But I vowed that I would never, never go through that again. Never have.
This is the first time you're here?
Yeah.
What you been doing?
Working like a fool.
Me too. As a matter of fact, I supposed to work 16.
Some workers spiraled downward. Others fought the closings.
It's the first big plant that it happened to. Now people, not just in Chicago, but in other cities and states have had this problem. So what do you tell people that are kind of maybe earlier in the process than you are?
That I learned to read a little bit. And this country belongs to the people. Somehow or other, we got to demand that we have a right to live. We got a right for our family to live. We got to make demands on the country to do what the Constitution says. Give a person a right to live, a right to go to school. At this point, you see what happened to the people like me who gets a pension is that the family moves in with me because my kids can't find jobs. And if they find jobs, they haven't got jobs. And that's what's happening in the thing. The thing is boiling up into a null and it's going to burst open.
At Wisconsin Steel, laid-off workers formed the Save Our Jobs Committee. This is a Save Our Jobs Committee button, as seen on Frank Lumpkin's jacket. They were fighting the aftermath of a questionable company buyout that helped bankrupt the mill. After the abrupt shutdown, workers not only lost their jobs, they lost their pensions, health insurance, last paychecks, and other benefits owed to them. And this is an interview taken from a discussion panel regarding the deindustrialization of the area and the effect it had on the workers and the community at large, taken in 1988.
And that we ain't about to quit the fight, and that we'll be there until justice is done to each and every Wisconsin steel worker that worked there during the time that this thing happened. The hardship of the cases is enormous. A lot of people have died since that plant have closed. People have lost homes, people have lost cars. Everywhere I've ever been, whenever they was finished with my service, they paid me off. If they fired me, they paid me. So with Wisconsin Steel, when this plant went broke, or went belly up, or whatever it was, it took a couple of weeks before we found out that we wasn't even getting paid. It took maybe less than that for some people to find out that all the checks they had was bouncing. And not only that, the bank and the people who wrote the checks was holding us responsible.
International Harvester in Viardine, I worked 25 years. I put my time in. Pay me, that's all I ask. Don't pay me no less, don't pay me no more. I don't want nothing that I don't deserve. I only want what I think I got coming. I don't see how this can happen here in America, the land of milk and honey, where they're handing out millions of dollars all over the world, and they can't hand us $5,500, my pension. I don't understand this.
The Save Our Jobs Committee filed lawsuits alleging Wisconsin Steel's buyout was a sham transaction designed to defraud workers of their pension fund. The Save Our Jobs meetings also offered a social lifeline for unemployed workers facing isolation and depression. After 13 years of a David and Goliath struggle, the Save Our Jobs Committee won both lawsuits. Although they won back a fraction of the lost wages and benefits owed to Wisconsin steelworkers, many workers didn't live to see it. By that time, over 800 had died, many from lack of health care, stress-related illnesses, alcoholism, or suicide. In the years following Wisconsin Steel's closure, tens of thousands more jobs disappeared in the region. By the time steelworkers at Southworks made their videotapes, there were only a few hundred employees left at the mill. It was the end of an era.
There's another attempt to pull the 21-inch mill. This will be the last race for the racehorse crane 146.
When the mills were demolished, workers were there with their video cameras. Some workers saved things to remember what was being lost.
This is an end section. It's cut off in a nice saw. It's an end section from the last beam rolled at Southworks.
And here we have a grid of some of those artifacts saved by former steel mill workers, from pins to plaques to some of the last bars rolled at the mills, hard hats, photographs, ofrendas. Knowing the past, facing the future. In many places like Southeast Chicago, the good jobs never returned. More and more industrial jobs have become non-union, contract, or temp work, or have been automated away entirely. But some old union hands in the Calumet region are leading the fight to create good jobs for the next generation.
Unions don't fight just for themselves, because what we benefit, everybody else benefits too when it comes to wages, benefits, and opportunities.
Here is a video clip of me talking with my grandfather, Roger Coco Gomez, who worked at Republic Steel for over a decade. We discuss what it was like working in the mills, the differences between our generations, and the impact that growing up in the Southeast Side had on us, respectively.
We knew we could never get the steel mills back. We knew that. But that didn't mean that commercial had to fall apart and the parks had to, deteriorate and the streets deteriorate, but prices kept going up, There was no equality there, Whoever was making the money kept making the money. Whoever lost the money, they didn't only kept losing the money, their family started losing the money too.
Knowing that our ancestors, no matter what race you were in this neighborhood, were builders and they worked with their hands, they weren't afraid to sweat, that's something that has had an impact on me and my sisters growing up. It's gonna have an impact on my daughter because we just were built different. And I think that that's something that I know I'm proud of.
I'm proud I worked in the mill. The steel mill taught me as much discipline as Little League Baseball. Because you had to watch out what you were doing. There wasn't no, oh, I'm sorry, you got your finger stuck in this gear. You didn't get that back. You had to know what you were doing. You had to understand danger. Life didn't have that. There was no job safety analysis in life. You didn't find out the rough parts and ease them out. You jumped over them or you battled through them and all that.
There's this dissonance and there's this difference between your generation and mine. Your generation comes from the world of the blue collar community. When you were in high school, you guys all knew what you were gonna do out after. For us, the world's changing so fast, people in high school, by the time they get to college, the job that they wanted, it's not even a job anymore. We are part of the Rust Belt in terms of what we were built on is no longer the case in America. So we have to connect our generations together.
In my world, it was one gear going this way. And we're progressing little by little, but we're going this way. We're not going this way, which is backwards, okay? You guys are going like this. When gears are in mesh, they are like this. Teeth and teeth. And they all turn at the same time. And when we all could spin, you'd be amazed what we could do. But you can't stop spinning on someone and jump out of mesh and let the other guy go running by himself. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't go to the end, it don't work. Mm-hmm. It does not work.
We need to learn from the past and understand that we can't stay too true to that one specific thing, because if it changes, it causes chaos after. The South Works Mill, where the workers videotaped their last days, is now known as Steelworkers Park. The walls were so massive, bulldozers couldn't knock them down.
Just looking at the whole place kind of astounding, because I never ever, in my wildest dreams, think I would see this, where the mill was. There was 11,000 men here.
People from Southeast Chicago still come here to remember. We asked residents of the Calumet region to leave a message on the wall. Here are some of those messages. From Diane Witt. My entire family consisted of mill rats. Grandfather, uncles, cousins, brothers. From Josie Rand. My pops loved making steel at Wisconsin Steel. He told me stories about working in the blooming mill, and it was always so obvious how much pride he took in what he did there. He wasn't ever the same after it closed. Many years before, his father, my grandfather, came up from Pinicuaro, Mexico, to work in the mill and pursue the American dream. My grandpa, Telio, was only 44 when he died. I think my dad was 5 at the time. One from Robert Franklin. My dad did 37 years at Southworks, got burned badly, and they showed him the door. I did 13 years and waved goodbye in 76. From Paul Frederick, most guys my age wanted to be ball players or rock stars, but I dreamt of working behind the gates of Southworks from the first time I witnessed the shift change. The images always reminded me of war movies as I watched men enter the gates with heads held high and shoulders squared, and watched later as the battle-weary survivors of the previous battle exited with shoulders slumped and heads hung low, but calling to each other, seemingly ready to celebrate the end of their mission with shots and beers. I finally realized that dream as a young man, barely 17, but able to alter my birth certificate to add 2 years to my age, and was accepted to work in the 30-inch UPM. My first day was a cacophony of almost overwhelming sights and sounds accompanying an almost surrealistic dance of man and machines working and moving steel plates. Men marking and measuring and stamping heat treat numbers into steel. Huge, undulating beds moving plates to travel along blocks-long rolling lines. Men with hooks threading chains between steel bundles to be hoisted by huge overhead cranes and delivered to other waiting men with hooks in train cars and on truck beds. It was a job I thought I'd have forever, a job that proved my worth and ability to provide for my young family and give them a better life. But it was not to be. Within 10 years, all of the hope withered, and I watched my plant, my neighborhood, and my dreams slowly dismantled and forgotten. Explore other artifacts by searching the archive or visit the featured exhibits. And again, there's all different types of adventures you can go on this website, from something as shorthand as looking through some photos and gaining a little history on that particular photo to delving into large storylines like this. And to end, as we end all of our storylines, we have credits and sources as well as acknowledgments. Again, this is a great place for you to gain firsthand insight into what it was like to live in the Southeast Chicago and grow up during some of these times, both good times and bad times. And we are very thankful for everyone that helped to contribute to making this storyline possible, from donating their artifacts to donating their time and memories.